Well, we have some big news today following the joint practice with the Cincinnati Bengals. Today is obviously Tuesday, August 20th, 2024, and we have some updates to the injury report and some good news and bad news. A lot of bad news today, unfortunately, but the Colts have an update on some of their guys who were injured in Saturday's game against the Arizona Cardinals. All that and more on today's video. What's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts every single day. And today we're talking the injuries to start with, and we'll continue on with some more news coming out of the joint practice with the Cincinnati Bengals today. But the first one of note, there's quite a bit of news coming out today. So the first one is that Ashton Dulin has made his return. This is going to be a big return after working through a hamstring injury that kept him sidelined for 4 practices and 2 preseason games. Ashton Dulin returned to the practice field on Tuesday in what has become a crowded receiver room. Dulin has missed valuable time, but GM Chris Ballard spoke highly of Dulin's ability to contribute on special teams and fill in on the offense when the team is in a pinch. We talked about Zach Pascal, and he was talked about pretty heavily as he made his Indianapolis Colts return. He's been on the Philadelphia Eagles, but for a long time, Zach Pascal was one of those just like consistent guys. He's there when you need him. He's never going to be the guy, but he's always there. And Ashton Dulin has, for a majority of his career, played a similar role. Obviously, he's been injured and kind of struggled with injuries for a little bit, but it's good to have a guy like that. Good to have a guy with experience who knows the offense, who knows the scheme, who knows this fit. And so it's good to see a guy like Ashton Dulin come back and like this report says, to be able to be there when the team is in a pinch, especially when you've got Anthony Gould struggling with ball security and some of the other things that we've seen in the receiver rooms. It's good to have a guy like Ashton Dulin to be there and to just be consistent. He's never, like I said, never going to be the guy that I think is going to just be the option for a deep route or really be there, but he's going to be consistent. He's good for dump offs. He's good for a little bit of yard after catch. But that's one of them. Here's the big one, and this is one that we've talked about quite a bit this offseason, is Jelani Woods. Jelani Woods set to make a massive comeback. We saw the videos, but then obviously we talked last week about Jelani Woods potentially being on the outside looking in for the 53-man roster cut that is coming in just 1 week from tomorrow. But now we've got some really bad news for Jelani Woods, and it's not looking good. Jelani Woods, per Joel Erickson, reports that Jelani Woods needs surgery on his turf toe that he injured in Saturday's game. As of now, there is no timetable for his return. Under the new NFL rules, Colts can place him on IR before roster cutdowns next Tuesday and still have Woods eligible to return at some point in the season. This is big. And this is big because we've talked a lot about this tight end room. Will Mallory is really coming up. Kylan Granson really making a name for himself. Drew Ogletree, and then you've got Mo Alley Cox. So you've got 4 wide receivers, all of which are pretty decent wide receivers and have a really you have a good room right there. A good tight end room. None of those guys are going to be like A+ playmakers, but they're going to be guys that are going to be consistent, especially guys like Mo Alley Cox. Who again, I was one to say like Jelani Woods is going to be tight end 1. He's going to be the guy. I think everyone that's been a Colts fan for any amount of time was really hoping to see him make a really good comeback. Again, this is a guy who had an RAS score of 10.0. It was the highest ever by a tight end at that time, and the highest that the Colts had ever drafted up until they drafted Anthony Richardson, who also had a 10.0. But this is big, and this is not good. Not good for Jelani Woods. He was really struggling to find a spot on this roster, especially as we were getting closer and closer. And maybe this buys him a little bit of time. Maybe he's able to kind of get himself right. But he just hasn't looked good. Hasn't looked good in preseason, hasn't looked good in training camp. And again, this is a guy that I think a lot of us had really high hopes for. But the injury bug, man, it gets you. And it gets guys like Jelani Woods, these big guys who really struggle, especially with lower body injuries. So that's a big one. But we do have some good news. Right. Good news on the Tanner Bortolini, who also had a toe injury in Saturday's game, and he looked good. I mean, Tanner Bortolini, like, let's talk about that for a second. He looked really good in the preseason game, both as the backup center and in some of the other positions at guard. They moved him around quite a bit. He looks really good. He was out with a toe injury, and I think that caused a little bit of concern. Matt Gonzalez was also out after that game, but Bortolini would leave Saturday's game with a toe injury, and his injury is not as severe as Woods. It will Woods will require surgery, but it does sound like Bortolini will miss some time, and it's unclear yet if he's going to be ready for week 1. But Steichen did say I think he'll be all right too. I don't see him missing a certain amount of time, but he's going to miss some time. I think Tanner Bortolini wasn't projected to be a starter right off the bat. I think that. That would be exciting, but I definitely think that offensive linemen, a lot of times they grow with time. You don't really see rookies making a huge name for themselves unless they're a guy like Penei Sewell, who just right off the bat make an impact. So I think Tanner Bortolini, he's going to be all right. This definitely seems like a guy who's going to fight through it. No surprise here, but Josh Downs was out, but we did see him walking around without any sort of boot or sprain or any sort of brace or anything like that. So that's really, really good. Good for Josh Downs and his recovery. So we're looking, he's no longer in a scooter, which was the case as of last week, but it does look like he's able to gain some mobility, and hopefully he's going to be ready to go. We've got 2 weeks now until week 1, or I guess 19 days. Excuse me. 19 days until week 1, and so we'll see if Josh Downs is going to make any progress. Well, let's go back a little bit because I do want to talk about Juju Brents, who was still out. Juju Brents had that tackle in Saturday's game that obviously his helmet slid down. He was tackling running back Benson from the Arizona Cardinals. His helmet came down. He had a bloody nose. It was really not disfigured, but it was really bloody, and he had stitches and everything. So Steichen did say that he should return sooner rather than later, but he was out in today's practice. I would not expect to see him play in the final preseason game against the Bengals. I think because his roster spot's kind of locked in, he's played a really good training camp aside from the pass interference call against Arizona. I think reps were important for Juju, but obviously his health is more important. And so especially when you got anything going on upper body, you really want to make sure that he's good. And we got just a couple more people to talk about before we conclude today. And Trey Sermon was still out. It does look like Sermon remains sidelined with a hamstring injury that he suffered in the preseason opener against Denver last week. Steichen was asked about Sermon's injury and didn't have a timeline for his return. Of course, each of these injuries are different. For what it's worth, Dulin missed a couple weeks before returning. So I think that this is nothing of news. The Colts are going to be in great hands as far as running back goes. Tyler Goodson looks very, very good. Evan Hull looked good on Saturday. And I think that they're going to be all right in whatever one of these three guys gets the RB2 role. I would like to see Sermon healthy. I think that he's had a really, really good preseason. He's had a good career. I mean, honestly, as this backup running back or even sometimes the third string running back, as he has been historically in some cases, he's looked really good. And he came up right before Elijah Mitchell. He's just been a good back. I think his average, if I'm not mistaken, I think his average yards per carry is still like 6 or something like that. Like, it's pretty high for a backup running back who obviously hasn't gotten a ton of action, but he's good and consistent, which is what you want in a backup running back. So we hope to see him back soon. But there is some more things of note before we go any further on the injury report, and that is that the offense really struggled a little bit at first against the Cincinnati Bengals starting offense, and they were chirping. They were going hard. Anthony Richardson was able to salvage the first drive on 11-11s with a touchdown to 80 Mitchell, but just kind of looked rattled. His timing was a little off. Anthony Richardson is always going to be one that relies on so much for timing, and so I think that it's not surprising, but it is good to see that they ended on a better note. Cincinnati's offense against the starting defense for the Indianapolis Colts failed to score even a single point, and there was a highlight coming out, Joe Burrow to T. Higgins, and it definitely looked like, it was a great play, but honestly, Kenny Moore was on the coverage, and he was right on it, and I honestly, if this is a real game, there's no way that Tyler Boyd makes that, or T. Higgins, makes that catch, because Kenny Moore is right there, and you're not going to play full contact in a joint practice, but very clearly Kenny Moore would have been a little bit more physical in that play. So good outing all the way around. I think it's good to get Anthony Richardson some reps and get this offense some reps. I think they're still kind of they're not revealing a whole playbook right now. So curious to see what that's going to look like. They're going to play a quarter and a half in the preseason finale against the Cincinnati Bengals on Thursday. But be sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned for more this week as we cover all things Colts every single day.